Morning everyone, happy Sabbath. I hope you're having an awesome day. How gorgeous is the sunshine today? It is just an amazing day here in Geelong. I was down at the beach this morning, just spending some time reflecting. Such a nice day to be out. I'm just driving now. I'm on the way to pick up someone from the airport. I had to fly in today. I hope wherever you guys are that you've been able to spend some time in Sabbath school this morning, or doing your devotions, or reflecting somewhere, or spending some time with people in the Word. I know I have. It was really good to catch up with some people this morning, just and share the Word together. I just wanted to share some reflections with you all this morning that I was having this morning, just in relation to this time that we're in now, and what is normal, because we can see the restrictions lifting, right? And I guess we've been living in this abnormal time, and normal, whatever that is, or at least the new normal, is on the horizon. And before we go back to the new normal, I think it's worth reflecting on what we want that new normal to be. What are some things that we've learnt in this time, worked through in this time? What are some things we realize that we took for granted? What do we want to be intentional about? What do we want to prioritize in the new normal that is to come? And I was thinking about people in the Bible, and there's probably a few instances we could look at where people went through something like this. But this morning I was reading in John, I think it's 20 verse 19, where it speaks about the disciples just being locked up or shut up in their home after Jesus was crucified because they were afraid of the Jews. So they had a reason to just be isolated and contained and on their own, sort of like we've been for a while now. And it would have caused them to, it was naturally an unsettling time, but just the being on their own would have caused them to reflect on their faith and who they were and what they were about in a unique way. I think of Peter reflecting on how he'd been so sure that he would never abandon Jesus, and then in this moment of trial, he denied him 3 times. He was like, "No, I don't even know the guy." And I was thinking it's probably worth each of us as a church and as individuals asking ourselves, what does my faith look like now? How has it come through this time? How have I been during this time in the absence of my usual routine, or meeting together as a group, getting together on Sabbath as a big church group without all that happening? How does my faith look? How's my friendship with God, my interaction with Him, my study of the Word, my sharing of my faith? How am I when I'm just on my own, or with less people, or when I go through a crisis or a challenging time? And someone I know shared a post on Facebook this week that was looking at different ways churches could reassess how they needed to grow in moving forward. And I just wanted to run through some of those and look at them in the context of where those principles might be found in the Bible, how they might apply to us as a church, and also as individuals. There's a lot of things. We are the church, right? So anything we do as individuals collectively becomes who the church is, or what the church is. And I want to, start by saying in that anything I say when I refer to the church, I'm not speaking to the pastor, I'm not speaking to the church leaders. I'm speaking to each of us individually. We are all the church, and who each of us are makes up the character of the church and the personality of the church. And sometimes when we think about problems we have with the church or things that are happening, we're thinking about someone else and what they need to change. But one question I think is really important to ask ourselves is, if everyone in the church was like me, or connected like me, or showed up like me, or interacted like me, what sort of church would it be? And that's not to say that we should be all the same. The church is a body made up of many parts that have different functions. We have unique personalities that we bring to the table that are all meaningful and necessary. But in terms of the quality that we show up with, if everyone showed up with the level of engagement, interaction, and commitment that I do, what sort of church would it be? Would it be a good church? Would it be a church that I want to come to? And that's something we can change, that's something we can control, and that's what we should focus on and be the best church that we can be. And if we all do that, we'll all come together and be the best church as a whole. So I just want to touch on some of these things that were mentioned. The first was looking at going from analog to digital, and I've been so encouraged, just inspired by so many of our church members over this time that have just taken the challenge of going digital. I've seen church members start YouTube channels, do Facebook Lives, engage on podcasts, record sermons. I've seen so many ministries of our church just show up and challenge themselves to interact in the digital space that we've found ourselves in. And it's been really encouraging to see people adapt and teach themselves new skills and learn new ways of sharing their faith or growing their faith even. There's been these online platforms of learning. We've seen the digital Bible worker training that's come out as part of the conference initiative with the Hope Awakens program that's running at the moment. There's been a similar one launched by New South Wales called The End. And there's also been a Rise, which was launched free online, and something like 20,000 people across the world signed up for Bible worker training, or just training on just understanding the Bible better and being able to share it more effectively. And to see just 20,000 people just sign up like that was just an amazing thing that's come out of this time. And I've seen that reflected in our local church, and that's been really encouraging. So to all of you who have challenged yourself to step out and share your faith in a digital way, I've seen some really good things. I've been inspired by it, and I think there's a lot of growth that's happened there that we don't want to lose when we go back to being able to just get together as normal. There's a lot of growth that we can keep moving in there and keep expanding in and use effectively. The second point that was raised about churches growing was, sorry guys, I just had them written down here. The second point that was raised was from teaching to equipping, and just reflecting on, often as a church we've viewed that if we've presented the information, then we've done our job. But if we look in the Bible how Jesus really worked with his disciples, it was discipleship. It's not that we just teach someone information, we baptize them, and we've presented the information, so job done. Sharing faith, sharing the gospel is really an interactive experience. We see Jesus living side by side with the disciples, mentoring them, really equipping them, not just teaching, but equipping. Not just giving out tasks, but giving out responsibility and allowing them to grow and to work through things, and just being beside them in that in a meaningful way that doesn't just teach, but really equips someone to have their own faith and also to share that faith with others. The third point being from gathering to connecting. So I guess reflecting on, we all showed up every week at a building in a large gathering, but were we really connecting? And when the building was taken away, how connected were we? This is such a unique opportunity to challenge ourselves on this and to see what that looks like. And both as a whole church and just individually, how connected was I with the people around me? How much was I reaching out? What sort of friendships did I have apart from the building or the usual way that we did things? And I think this is something we can definitely focus on more going forward. The building is only useful to the extent that it facilitates connection. The gathering together is only meaningful to the extent that it facilitates connection, that it provides an opportunity for us to connect. And the real point is not to gather, is to connect. And the gathering's meaningful in the connection that we share. So just being mindful of that. On a personal level as well, was my connection with God dependent on the fact that I just gathered with a group of people that believed in him? Or is my connection with God, has it been real and meaningful and just as impactful when it's just me and God and we're on our own, and Do I learn from him? Do I have a personal relationship with him? The next point being from global to local. So just being thoughtful about our focus, that it's meaningful to the community around us. Are we sharing and preaching the gospel in a way that's effective for Geelong, that's connecting with the people around us? Often we will do mission trips overseas, or we give to things around the world, and that is really important. But how well do you share your faith in your workplace, in your home? When the disciples were asked to preach the gospel, they were told to start at home, and that was for other reasons as well. But there's definitely something connected to testing the authenticity of something by how real it is to the people closest to you and the people that you interact with every day. Is your faith real, and does it express itself at home, in your workplace, in your community? So having a local, relevant, meaningful focus. And the next point was just being aware that of our attitude towards giving. Do we feel a desire to be generous, or are we concerned about overspending? And there is reasons where we should I guess, be mindful of our spending, but not when it's about being less generous. And I was encouraged this week, a church member on a YouTube channel, they started just sharing a devotion about generosity and how it's fostered by two things. It's fostered by gratitude, and it's fostered by trust. And gratitude, when we come to a place where we are thankful for all that God has given us, and we realize that everything that we have comes from Him, we feel generous because we're happy to give out, because God has given us so much. We want to give, and that's the narrative we need to take into our material possessions, and that's the narrative we need to apply to the gospel. God has poured out His love for us. He's died for us. He gives us everything when it comes to relationship and character growth and meaning. And if He's been that generous with us, let's pour that out. Let's share that generously with others. And the other point when it comes to trust, if we know that God has given us and supplied all our needs in the past, He's supplied our needs through this time, He's supplying our needs now, then we don't need to hoard up possessions. We don't need to hang on to things, because God's going to supply our needs in the future. And so just those two things, trusting God and being thankful, fostering a spirit of generosity in whatever church projects, whatever ministry needs, funds, whatever people around you need or would benefit from the generosity of your time, your efforts, your friendship, and even your material possessions, in whatever ways that is. Check your heart for its generosity. How grateful are you to God for what He's given you, and how much do you trust Him to provide for you in the future if you give to this need that's before you now? So just being thoughtful of that as a church and individuals. The next point being from complex to simple. And I think about the ministry that a lot of the early church engaged with, and it changed the world, right? It transformed the world. But the platforms and the structures by which it operated were really quite simple, and they just responded to the needs and what was most effective in getting the word out there. And the real value in the message was its core content, and that it transformed lives and how real the people were that were sharing it. The heart that Christians had for other people, how they loved them, that they reached out to the poor, they reached out to the needy, they looked out for each other. It was those things that really grew the church. The heart transformation that occurs when we give our hearts to God and let Him come in. It wasn't a big building, it wasn't a big presentation. So I think this is just a good time to look at what parts of our church are really effective, what parts of our ministry are really effective, do really well at those things and focus on those things. Simplify everything that we do down to those things which are really effective. And there is purpose and meaning to structure and presentation and all of those things, but only to the extent that they are meaningful and effective, not just so we can have structure and buildings and performance. We don't want to develop and pour in a lot of energy to those things for the sake of having them. Let's look at what's meaningful. And the last thing that was spoken about was attendance versus engagement. So whether we're just viewing, we're showing up at church and we're just there as viewers to a performance, or whether we're engaging and interacting. And this is a responsibility that the church has that's leading out, but also all of us that are showing up. As a church, are we fostering a platform where people come and listen and view, or where people are engaging? Are we, as a whole church, engaging and interacting both in the worship service, both in the ministry of the church through the week, and everything that the church is? Are those of us who are leading out in the church fostering an environment that supports real engagement? And as people who are showing up, are we going there just to view? Are we going there hoping that someone is just going to do a presentation for us and we won't need to interact? Or are we challenging ourselves to grow and to build ourselves to engage and interact, to ask, to engage, to ask, to share, to give testimonies, to be a meaningful part of our local church community in whatever ways that is? And there are just some thoughts. I think it's really worth reflecting on some of those things at this time. That we've had this unique opportunity to come away from how we usually do routine as church and how we usually do routine as individuals in our lives. And I think more and more going forward, we need to realize that church is not a once a week thing. It's not something we show up on Saturday and we do. Church is who we are as the people all through the week. And when that building's gone, when whatever that structure is, that was the once a week thing that we do, what really makes church is everything else. And who we are as a community of believers in Geelong, all through the week, every day of our lives. So just encourage all of you to think on some of those things. I hope your Saturday is awesome, your Sabbath is awesome. Spend some time with God, spend some time out in nature today. The sunshine is amazing. Reflect on your faith, reflect on church, what that is. Just my encouragement to all of you. It's such a blessing to be part of the Adventist Church in Geelong, the community that is. And anytime, reach out. Love to engage and talk with all of you. It's really a blessing to be part of this community. Happy Sabbath, everyone. God bless.